I honestly have no idea what's about to happen next. But it's the whole this whole story has been incredibly surprising to me. I like the sort of at the same time not like when you hear about him as a child and his sort of rebellious spirit against the kind of authoritarian or sort of like rule following nature of school. It's maybe not surprising that he would then think that he could just go out and not follow the rules of society and therefore not like pay his debts and things. Um, but yeah, so it's not at all what I was expecting. I'm interested to hear about what it is about his compositions in particular that people you know were so inspired by and things like that. But yeah, I guess I didn't expect him to be this rebellious initially going into it blind.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot here that is surprising.
Yeah.
Very interesting figure. He's a
I suppose
perfect
you
Art of
don't
Darkness figure.
Yeah, I suppose you don't necessarily equate like Germans with being particularly rebellious.
That's maybe
Criminal in other ways, but yeah, I don't know.
that's that's maybe a mistake.
Maybe it's a
That's
mistake.
maybe I think it's a mistaken sort of prejudice you have against the Germans.
Perhaps it
Uh,
is.
yes, indeed, I think so. I think in the English language we may have certain again prejudices baked in. All right, so it's actually List who helps him get out. So List arranges a false passport, lends cash, and helps Wagner get over the border to Switzerland, and he is a fugitive for a decade. Okay. He can't
Hmm.
go back to Germany. So in May 1849, he begins a long exile, and he leaves behind his post in Dresden and an unfinished new opera, Lohengrin. Um, it's a romantic opera about the medieval Swan Knight. Um, it would be premiered in 1850 in Weimar under the baton of Franz Liszt. So Liszt, at this point, is like helping premiere Wagner's work. Liszt is like been you know is won over, and he's a believes in Wagner, and Lohengrin does get performed. I'm just trying to look up the premiere. Let's see. I'm just looking it up. Yeah, he literally cannot. He cannot. He can't go back to Germany, um, which I just think is so funny. I'm looking up this opera right now. Just, I mean, like, it's just so funny to me that he, after all of this struggle and all of this battle, like you have to kind of give him a little bit of credit. Maybe he thought something more was going to happen.
Mm.
You know, that something was going to change, but it's just like now you've taken your first like solid position where you're able to produce your operas, and you've sacrificed that on the altar
Yeah,
of
you're
this.
finally allowed back in Dresden. You're making
Right.
money. Life is
Yeah.
stable.
Right. Right. And it sort of makes you wonder, is he now just, totally you have to wonder, is an element of
I think he,
self-sabotage.
I think he likes drama.
I think he likes punch and yeah,
Oysters.
punch and oysters. That's 100% a new thing. Punch and oysters on Art of Darkness. The punch finished the job that that the champagne couldn't, something like that. All right. And List continues to support him. Now Minna was furious with him.
Almond
Okay.
still around.
Minna's still around. Minna's hanging around. Minna, they would not get divorced. They would not get divorced, believe it or not. She was serious with him, and after this, their relationship cooled irreparably. She considered Zurich a provincial town, so he goes to Zurich, and lamented the loss of her social position as Frau Kapellmeister, right? Like you have status. It was only in August of that year that she agreed to rejoin Wagner in Zurich, but it was plain that their worldviews were now totally different. Minna could understand his work as a conductor, but increasingly found his operatic works not to her liking. Nevertheless, she was now tied to him since it was unlikely that she would again be able to work for the stage, and she had a horror of ending up in servitude. Ugh. Minna also began to show signs of heart disease, for which she was prescribed laudanum, opium.
Oh,
Before joining Wagner in Zurich, she wrote him, "My greatest pride and pleasure was seeing you as the head of the greatest orchestra in Germany. You may remember that I missed almost no performance which you conducted, saw only you, and was happy. I believed that what I was hearing emanated from you only. The Ninth Symphony will be forever unforgettable to me on account of you. You appeared to me like a god governing all the powerful elements and working enchantments on men. See, dear Ricard, you own the power, the glorious gift of creating something great, even as a conductor." So she was happy. She was happy, and then he had to go get
he
mixed
was
up with the
happy.
socialists.
Oh God.
Many such cases. All right. So what does he do? What does he do in Zurich? He writes. Okay.
Hmm.
So he spent the next 9 years in political exile, principally in Zurich. This period, though personally trying, proved creatively rich. Unable to secure performances of his work in Germany, he was a fugitive with an arrest warrant. Wagner turned to writing and theorizing about the future of art. He poured out essays outlining bold ideas. These are the manifestos: art and revolution, the artwork of the future, and opera and drama among them. He argued for a new type of opera in which music, poetry, drama, and stagecraft were fused. The total work of art, Gesamtkunstwerk. Yeah, that's a tough one. Concept that would define his mature operas. And that's we're going to do this total unifying work of art. Everything will come together. And the fuck of it is that he actually accomplished it. Wagner, I mean, if this was just a podcaster ranting into a microphone, we would have forgotten him long ago. If he would just given his speech, he would have been remembered as like an associate of Mikhail Bakunin and all this, whatever it is. But he actually went and did it. That's the crazy thing. It's insane. And ironically, well, we'll come to the great irony of how he finally accomplished, the Ring Cycle and the Beirut Festspielhaus, the opera house that he built. So he renounced the shallow conventions of grand opera and even criticized his own earlier works. So I've got a link here. This is just a PDF, The Artwork of the Future. I'm just going to read a few paras of this just to get a sense of what he's on about. As man stands to nature, so stands art to man. When nature had developed in herself those attributes which included the conditions for the existence of man, then man spontaneously evolved. In like manner, as soon as human life had engendered from itself the conditions for the manifestation of artwork, this too stepped self-begotten into life. Nature engenders her myriad forms without caprice or arbitrary aim, according to her need, and therefore of necessity. This same necessity is the generative and formative force of human life. Only that which is uncapricious and unarbitrary can spring from a real need, but on need alone is based the very principle of life. One more. Man only recognizes nature's necessity by observing the harmonious connection of all her phenomena. So long as he does not grasp the latter, she seems to him caprice. And it goes on like this. And it's hundreds of pages. And it's just, it goes on, and it's this theory of art. Okay? I mean, here's another one. This is called The Art of Tone. The ocean binds and separates the land. So does music bind and separate the two opposite poles of human art. The arts of dance and poetry. I see Dante everywhere now. Of dance and poetry. She is the heart of man, the blood, which takes this heart for starting point, gives to the outward facing flesh its warm and lively tint, while it feeds the inward coursing brain nerves with its welling pulse. Without the heart's activity, the action of the brain would be no more than of a mere automaton. The action of the body's outer members, a mechanical and senseless motion. Through the heart, the understanding feels itself allied with the whole body, and the man of mere five senses mounts upwards to the energy of reason. It goes on. It's just like that for pages and pages and pages and pages. You can just see him like in Switzerland, just going, he just wants to be on the stage. He wants to be doing opera. He had it. He had it in his hands. He had it, and
He had it.
he gave it away for
I
this, yeah, revolution.
I mean, I just can't imagine ever being this intense.
No chill. No chill. None. Zero chill, like I said. Okay. And in these essays, he declared that art must be revolutionary and redemptive for society. He saw ancient Greek drama as an ideal and believed modern opera had to be reformed radically or it would perish. Cut off from the stage, he was essentially reinventing opera on paper before he could realize it in sound. And now I'm going to get into the Wagnerism book, which is so good. And thank you for the recommendation. So he's already thinking about this festival experience that he wants, right? Our 4-day podcast episode. This is just day
Hmm.
one. Wagner had long wished for a new kind of festival experience through which his audience could escape urban distractions and enter a more receptive frame of mind. There were precedents for such a ritual, such as the Passion Play at Ober Ammergau, which has been reenacting Jesus Christ's trial and death at 10-year intervals since 1634. The ultimate model was the Great Dionysia, the civic festival of ancient Athens, which revolved around dramatic performances in the form of taurologies, three tragedies followed by a satyr play. Wagner set forth his plan in an 1850 letter to a friend. I would erect in a beautiful meadow near the town a crude theater of board and beams, but built to my specifications and equipped only with such decor and machinery as is necessary for the performance of Siegfried. At the new year, announcements and invitations to all friends of the musical drama would go out to all the German newspapers with the offer of a visit to the proposed dramatic musical festival. Anyone who responds and travels for this purpose to Zurich would be assured an entree, naturally, like all the entrees, gratis. In addition, I would invite the young people here, university, choral societies, etc. When everything was in order, I would arrange under these conditions 3 performances of Siegfried in 1 week. After the third, the theater would be torn down and my score burnt. To those who had enjoyed the thing, I would then say, now go do the same. So big, young theater nerd dreams, right? It would cost $10,000, Wagner added. And he's literally like, it would be a free festival, right? And so he's working on Siegfried, which is the second of the major 3 operas in the Ring cycle. So yeah, I mean he's got big dreams.
I
Even
mean,
even and then
it sounds kind of cool, but there's something about him that makes me feel like he's not doing it for people's enjoyment necessarily. Like,
right. Oh no. This
I'm
is
not.
not about entertainment. No.
Yeah, it feels like because the idea of like a 3 or 4 day festival of like arts and like opera theater, like building a stage and stuff like that could be a lot of fun. That could be your Swiss Burning Man or something. I don't know. But
Sure.
I feel like he wants to lock us into a place and feed us vegetables for
There is a certain cult of Wagner. Yeah,
right.
there's a cultishness. Like we're gonna gather everyone from Germany and all the students and the young people, and we're gonna go see my opera performed 3 times, right? And
Mhm.
then when it's done, everything gets burned, and it's just like there's a kind of a mania. This is also where the infamous tract Das Judentum in der Musik, or Judaism in music, or Jewishness in music, appears.
Hmm.
He writes it during his exile in Zurich, and it comes out in 1850 under a pseudonym, K. Freigedank, or K. Freethought. Okay. And he uses a pseudonym. He would state to Franz Liszt that he used it not out of fear, but to prevent the question being dragged down by the Jews to a purely personal level. Okay, so this is where this comes out, and we're going to talk a little more about it on the After Dark.
Mhm.
I am going to read from Wagnerism, Wagner and the Jews. It starts with there's a cartoon of Wagner as a Jew, a Viennese cartoon. Whatever that, I don't know why that's at the top of it.
Oh.
But that's a thing. Murderous hostility toward Jews had existed in Germany for centuries before Wagner was born. The composer's ugliest utterances pale next to the verbal violence unleashed by Martin Luther in his 1543 pamphlet On the Jews and Their Lies, which calls for the burning of synagogues and the razing of Jewish homes. Ugly. A long procession of intellectual luminaries had disparaged Jews and Jewishness, including Kant. Kant said Judaism is not really a religion at all, and Goethe, we will tolerate no Jew amongst us. In the 19th century, though, anti Jewish rhetoric underwent a fateful transformation. Formerly, it had a religious basis or was tied to critiques of capitalism. When scientific sounding theories of race took hold, in the final years of Wagner's life, Jews were categorized as biologically different from the rest of humanity. That's great. Wagner,
Hmm.
good stuff. Just awful. Wagner helped to propagate this racialized hatred, which came to be known as anti Semitism. Jean Jacques Natisse in Wagner Anti Semite declares that the composer has the sad privilege of being one of the first, perhaps the first, to make the transition between the two forms of anti Judaism. Wagner, and again, we're covering this because it's important to know. You'll hear Wagner was an anti-Semite, and I don't know if you're like me in the back of your mind. You're like, okay, well, what did he say a few things or what? No, he wrote a whole fucking pamphlet. Like he was like all in. It was ugly, and it does stain his sort of legacy and his memory. And it's
Mm.
even in some of the work. There's certain things that are just if you start looking for it, you can go, oh, geez, these are caricatures. This is not great. This doesn't hold up well. This is problematic. I mean, it's all in there. And again, this is Art of Darkness, so we cover this stuff. And if you have a problem with it, I don't know what to tell you. Just covering it, retweets are not endorsements. You need to know this stuff if you want to know about the life and work of this artist. All right. So the anti-Jewish remarks were creeping into his writing as early as the 1830s. The resentment intensified after 1849 when his musical and political ambitions collapsed in tandem. At that time, leftists routinely portrayed Jews as avatars of capitalism. Karl Marx's 1843 essay on the Jewish question responded to a similarly titled work by Bruno Bauer, states that Jewish political activities are founded on egoism and the pursuit of material gain. That's Marx. That the Jewish mentality pervades society and that liberation from Jewishness will be achieved only through the abolition of capitalism. Tough stuff. Wagner may well have read Marx's essay on in the Deutsch-Französische Jahrbucher, where it first appeared. 3 decades later, he cited a letter from Arnold Rouge to Marx that was published in the same volume. He would this on his Jewish tract that he wrote, his anti-Jewish tract, published it under a pseudonym in 1850, and then I think it's in 1869 he republishes it under his own name.
He's like, I'm saying it with my chest.
Jeez, like it's just like it's very, very heavy, very dark. And again, if you're Jewish and you're asked to perform Wagner, like what do you
Mm.
do? What do you do with this? I mean, it's like if you're asked to be in a film by Roman Polanski now, what do you do? The guy made Chinatown. What do you do? What do you do? I don't know. I don't have the answer. We just talk about this stuff and cover it. And I know anti-Semitism, just the word itself is like scary, and just saying Jews can be scary, but it's like it just this is real, and this is history, and this is if I was to cover Wagner without talking about this, I would be doing the audience a disservice,
Mm.
like truly. And this is some very good stuff here that sort of explains it. So let's see here. The Wagner scholar Udo Birnbach notes that the closing argument of On the Jewish Question by Marx, the social emancipation of the Jew is the emancipation of society from Judaism. And I don't know what that means. I don't know why Marx was saying that, but that's Marx. Paranoia fueled Wagner's obsession as he came to believe that both Felix Mendelssohn and Giacomo Meyerbeer, Europe's preeminent composers of Jewish descent, were plotting against him. So he not only, so he's in Zurich, he can't do his work, and now he's going, oh, Mendelssohn, and they're coming to get me, I mean, so yeah. Abby, are you with me?
In a situation of his own creation.
Totally his own fault. I'm going to look around for somebody to blame. It's the
I have
Jews.
been not paying my debts
Right.
and railing against the king for years, fleeing across countries. It's the Jews that are the
Every
problem.
time. I mean, so there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of scapegoating, which of course people love to do.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. Yeah, the relationship with Meyerbeer, the German-born master of French grand opera, was particularly fraught. Meyerbeer had generously assisted Wagner in Paris, and Les Huguenots, Meyerbeer's towering 1836 opera about religious persecution in France, prefigured the leitmotif system. The prospect of owing multiple debts to a Jewish composer apparently caused Wagner no end of psychic agony. Furthermore, just as his own fortunes were crashing, his older colleague was enjoying renewed success. In 1849, Meyerbeer's latest opera, La Prophète, began a triumphal march across Europe. When Wagner saw it in Paris in early 1850, he became infuriated, and that was the spur to write Jewishness and in music. A little more here because it's so important. And this stuff is it's not a joke too, because this like leads directly to the Nazis and the Holocaust and World
Hmm.
War II and the persecution of Jews throughout
Well,
Europe.
it's
And
like
it's
it's
just
like
it's
Chanel hating the guy who owned her perfume.
sure, right. The anxiety of influence. Yeah. And Wagner is just sitting in Zurich. He's seething, and he's watching his colleagues who happen to be Jewish, getting these grand successes, and he can't even go back to his homeland. And he's just, yeah. And his wife is underfucked. His wife hates him. He admits his wife has never loved him. I mean, it's just like, and again, it's just like he's made his bed here, and it's like a
If it
fairy tale out.
isn't the consequence of my own actions.
Lo and behold, oh, what have I done? Oh, I surely I enjoyed reaping or sowing rather. I'm not enjoying the reaping. The sowing was fun. The
The
punch and
sewing was,
oysters were fun. The punch and oysters.
yeah.
Listen, he never listen. Here's the other thing. He never paid for those punch and oysters.
No,
He
it
just
was
did that
free
on credit.
money.
Free money. It's just free internet money. Punch and oysters. Um, Political sentiments and professional jealousies fail to explain the fervency of his hatred, however. It welled up from deep in his psyche, and he admitted to Liszt, "This rancor is as necessary to my nature as gall in the blood."
Oh, wow.
Ulrich Drüner has shown how the drafting of the Judaism essay coincided with the first sketches for Siegfried's death, the earliest stage of The Ring. Hostility toward Jews may in some way have been integral to Wagner's grandest undertaking. He remarked cryptically to Liszt that he was composing the work for the Jews of Frankfurt and Leipzig. It is all made for them. Spite can drive art. People don't talk about that very often. Spite,
No.
revenge, bitterness. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can. Yeah, it can be art can come from a bad place. Art can come from a nasty, nasty, nasty bad place. We have this idea that it's like all, twinkles and light. I don't think Lost Highway came from a happy place. I think Lost Highway came from a dark place.
Mm.
All right. He implied that the conflagration at the end of the ring would consume a Jewish dominated world. Okay. So this essay appears in 1850 in two issues of the Neue Zeitschrift für Musik under the pseudonym K. Freigedank, Free Thought. The Neue Zeitschrift had taken an aggressive pro-Wagner stance and also regularly bashed Meyerbeer. Earlier that year, the Dresden-based musician Theodor Uhlig had accused Meyerbeer of purveying Juden music, a recognizably and unattractively Jewish manner of composing. The conservative critic Ludwig Bischoff responded by calling Uhlig's concept a fantasy derived from prejudice. It was at this point that Wagner came into the fray in language of still shocking crudity, and it's gross. You read it, you just go, oh, this is just like, it's just bigotry. It's just like this bigoted
Mm.
tract, and it just goes on and on. It's not, again, it's not light fare. I probably won't read from any of it, even on the After Dark. It's just like, it's pointless. It's just, he's just blaming them for, blaming the other for all of the problems in music and society. And it's just not enough for Wagner to make his great German opera. He's got to tear down this other thing too. And it was just part of his character. So in language still shocking crudity, he charges Jews with being cultural parasites, feeding off of the healthy artistic material of other people. The Jew has never had an art of his own, Wagner writes, and so forth. Okay, I think that's enough of it. Not great. Don't love it. Not a great look,
Really
Wagner.
don't love it.
Don't love it. Does not hold up. There's sort of he didn't need to do it. But he felt the need to do it, and it's part of the history of it, and it's why the one of the reasons the stuff isn't performed in Israel. And if you try to perform
Hmm.
Wagner in Israel, they get real upset. And rightly so. If
Yeah.
there was an opera composer who was like, I shit on the whatever, the Irish, and fuck the Irish, and the Irish are, I mean, I guess there's probably English there's
Yeah,
probably in the
yeah,
history,
yeah. That's
you
the
go,
English.
I'm not, yeah, it's just the English. It's just like I'm not gonna thrill it. Like it's like when somebody gets all like giddy about royal shit over here, and I'll go, aren't you Irish? Like, what is your? Are you
Yeah.
are you not paying attention? Are you that stupid? Like, good, it's just like pay attention, and yeah, you can have I mean, your counter prejudices. It's not even prejudice. Your Judas, your judgment. Have your
Mm.
judgment. If this guy's like, I hate you, fuck you, you're perfectly entitled to go, yo, right back at you, and you don't have to play the music. I mean, if I was a Jewish musician, I'd be very curious to hear
Yeah.
from a Jewish any Jewish musicians out there who've been asked to perform Wagner. How do you square the circle, and what do you do with it? And again, is it like Polanski, where you just slot the work over here and go, this is some of the greatest artwork ever created by a bastard, like it's just a real bastard. I don't even like him for the leftism. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like maybe he should have gone back to mass or whatever, and had more bread and wine. Maybe he should have had a little more communion and a little. Maybe he could have honored
Right.
the Ten Commandments a smidge, a smidge. You could
Just a
have a
little.
little bit of the Ten Commandments as a
Maybe
treat.
like six of them.
Yeah, you can take 6 of them with your punch and oysters. All right. I hope everybody's having a good time on this episode of Art of Darkness. I love doing these. It's just so much fun. We'll talk a little more about Das Judentum in der Musik on the After Dark. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Nazi appropriation of Wagner there, and it just you can't talk about him without talking about that stuff. A lot of the material online, when you go and look for Wagner biographies, like the BBC, they'll lead with a Holocaust survivor. Like that's
Oh.
how they lead. They go, and they'll even say we play Wagner's music. Oh, and I have a punchline for the end of this. I was going to save this for the end of the episode, but I'm actually gonna put it right here because it speaks to this question. Actually, you know what? I'll save it for the end of the episode. You're gonna want to listen to the very end because there's a very curious thing where somebody who is highly influential in the Jewish world and in the creation of Israel had some opinions about Wagner and Wagner's music that might surprise you. Stay to the end. A couple more hours. All right. What does he need? What does he need next? After coming out. Well, he didn't really come out as an anti-Semite. He wrote it under a pseudonym. So Wagner attempted to leave Minna in 1850 when he had an affair
Yeah.
with the married 21-year-old Jessie Lasso, with whom he planned to elope to the Far East. However, Minna, together with Jessie's mother, put a stop to the plan. A bastard, just a real bastard. One of the biggest bastards We've covered, no question.
The mother saw this guy and was like, no, not for my
Nope,
daughter.
nope. I don't want big-headed children. This guy,
No.
his head's way too big. I love that comment is made about Wagner. Just big head, addressing 3,000 people, ranting, telling the king what the king should do. That's good. So Wagner eventually returned to Minna, and for a while, their relationship regained some of its original ardor. Now, this is his relationship with Liszt is ongoing. They have, They're in touch, but there's also a rift. Liszt dedicates his Dante Symphony to Wagner. Wagner replies he'd prefer money. Liszt hurt
Of course
removes
he would.
the dedication. Again, just a bastard. You know, I
Oh my
mean,
God.
yeah, I mean, just not a good dude. Just not like I don't know. I don't know if I would have Punch and Oysters with Wagner.
No,
Probably just out of curiosity one time, right?
he hasn't
Maybe.
had like a sort of save the cat moment, has he?
No. No, there's no save the cat moment. The only save the cat moment is the save the cat moment is that he is actually a one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century. So like if this was just a normal dude, you would just be like, there's just like a leftist prick lost to history, leftist, anti-Semitic, leftist prick lost to history. You know, you might read about him if you were reading about leftist politics in the 1848 revolution. But he's like also one of the greatest geniuses to ever live. So you go, oh man, oh the music's so good, the music's so good, and he influenced again, not just he influenced all the arts. I mean, he went right to Joyce and went right to T.S. Eliot too. The way the ring cycle starts with Das Rheingold is just amazing. It's incredible. He's creating an entire cosmic like an argument for an entire cosmos musically and lyrically and in terms of stage image and it's all there like fantasy world building all that stuff. What are you going to do with it? You're going to 14 hours, 16 hours. I do one day want to go to Beirut. I would love to see the weekend. It would be amazing. I mean, what are you going to do? Okay. Amidst this ferment of ideas, Wagner began conceiving his most ambitious project of all, a four-opera cycle drawn from Germanic mythology, which would become Der Ring des Nibelungen, the Ring of the Nibelung, or the Ring cycle. And the Nibelung are like, they're dwarves. The genesis of The Ring was unusual. Initially, in 1848, Wagner drafted a single opera libretto called Siegfried's Death, imagining a tragic hero's end. But he soon expanded the story with ever more backstory and mythic depth. By 1852, excuse me, he had written the libretti for four interconnected music dramas, a grand cycle to tell the whole saga of the cursed Rheingold, the gods and heroes, and the twilight of the gods. The four parts are Das Rheingold, which is the prelude evening, the Valkyrie, which everybody knows, Siegfried, and Götterdämmerung, the twilight of the gods. These were intended to be performed on successive evenings as an integrated festival. In Zurich, Wagner began composing the enormous score. He started with Das Rheingold in 1853 and completed it by September 1854. So a little more here. And this is from Wagnerism. Um, in the beginning was the tone, octave E flats and the double basses, sustained in a barely audible rumble. 5 bars in, bassoons at a pair of B flats, 5 steps higher. Together, these notes form the interval of the perfect fifth. Like the fifth that glimmers at the start of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, it is an emanation of primordial nature, the hum of the cosmos at rest. Then 8 horns enter one after another in upward wheeling patterns, which resemble the natural harmonic series generated by a vibrating string. Other instruments add their voices in gradually quickening pulses. As the mass of sound gathers and swirls and billows in the air, the underlying tonality of E flat does not budge. Only after 136 bars, 4 to 5 minutes of performance, does the harmony change, tilting toward A flat. The prolonged stasis engenders a new sense of time, although it is difficult to say what kind of time it is. Perhaps an instant passing in slow motion, perhaps aeons passing in a blur. This is the prelude to Das Rheingold, which is itself the Vorabend, the preliminary evening to The Ring. The orchestra represents the River Rhine, the repository of the magic gold from which a ring of unimaginable power can be forged. In his autobiography, Wagner relates how the opening came to him while he was staying in La Spezia on the Ligurian Sea in September of 1853. Resting at his hotel, he fell into a kind of somnambulistic state, and the prelude began sounding in his head. Although biographers doubt that it happened exactly that way, we can surmise that the river is not purely German, that it flows from deeper, warmer waters. It is, so to speak, the world's lullaby, Wagner said. Out of the rocking cradle of a universe out of the rocking cradle a universe emerges. The golden triads of Western harmony gestate from a fundamental tone, then language gestates from music. The Rhine maidens swim up from the depths, singing a mixture of nonsense syllables and German words. Wagner told Nietzsche, who he had a relationship with, the great German philosopher. We'll talk more about Nietzsche on the After Dark. Um, he had in mind the phrase "Aya papaya," sung for centuries by mothers to lull their babies. Via vaga, voga duvela, vala zur viga, vaga lavaya, walala, la waya. There you go. Water you wave, surge around the cradle. And so it starts with this babbling. That's how it starts. And that would influence, of course, Joyce and then T.S. Eliot and all the rest of it. That's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with the ring.
Beautiful place, La Spezia, by the way.
Oh, have you been? Where's La
I
Spezia?
have been. La Spezia is it's on the west coast of Italy. Just it's the main city that you go to travel up to the Cinque Terre, which is a UNESCO protected series of five little villages that you can walk between.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
You and your tomato Europeans.
Hmm.
Cool. Good to know. All right. And so who's going to come into his life now but Cosima? Who is Cosima? Cosima is Franz Liszt's daughter.
Oh.
In a Parisian salon in 1853, Franz Liszt visited his daughter Cosima, accompanied by Hector Berlioz and Richard Wagner. I'm never going to call him Richard. It's Richard Wagner. Cosima Liszt went unnoticed by the 40-year-old German, but that evening, the 16-year-old wrote in her journal that this intelligent man caught her eye. Age gap.
16.
Age gap. Nothing happens at this point, but just noting the age gap. At the time, Ricard was in a chaotic marriage with actress Minna Planner. Minna took wealthy lovers while Ricard became infatuated with other women, notably Matilda Wiesendonck, who could well have inspired Wagner's famous work Tristan and Isolde, which we're going to talk about. So yeah, they meet in 1853, and I'm just flagging their meeting because she would become extremely important. Ultimately, would become his second wife, and would run the Bayreuth Festival after his death. She was like a slave to him. In spiritually, she was just, which, you figure she was an illegitimate son of Liszt, or
I was going to say,
daughter, excuse me.
How did his dear friend Liszt feel about this?
Well, we're going to come to it. They haven't started their relationship. That's just their
Okay.
first meeting. He didn't notice her. She noticed him. So she was the daughter of Franz Liszt and Franco-German romantic author Marie de Gaulle. And I think she was illegitimate. Let me see. Yeah. In January 1833, the 21-year-old Hungarian, these composers, man, these musicians, these theater people, 21-year-old Hungarian composer and pianist Franz Liszt met Marie, a Parisian socialite 6 years his senior. Marie had been married since 1827 to Charles Comte de Gaulle. Okay, so aristocracy, nobility, and had borne him two daughters, but the union had become sterile. Drawn together by their mutual intellectual interests, Marie and Liszt embarked on a passionate relationship. In March 1835, the couple fled Paris for Switzerland, ignoring the scandal they left in their wake. They settled in Geneva, where on the 18th of December, Marie gave birth to a daughter. And there you go. So yeah, she's an illegitimate daughter of Liszt. So Wagner moves on and he's writing the Valkyrie, which is awesome. It's actually awesome. Finishing that by 1856. By this time, Wagner's musical language had evolved dramatically. In Rheingold and Valkyrie, he abandoned numbers, so separate arias or choruses. Okay, so he's abandoning that idea of these like chunky. Oh, well, this is where this aria is sung, and this is this moment, in favor of continuous music.
Hmm.
And he wove an elaborate web of leitmotifs, the themes that represent characters, objects, or ideas that transform and recur throughout the operas. And this would sort of this is what kind of one of his huge contributions to art. Again, Star Wars is just pure Wagner. All right, now here's a little bit about leitmotif from Wagnerism. The word leitmotif has sown much confusion over the years. Hans von Wolzogen, one of Wagner's most militant young followers, popularized the term against the composer's own wishes. Although Wagner referred to melodic moments and basic motifs in his work, he criticized Wolzogen for treating such motifs purely as dramatic devices, overlooking their musical logic. In the simplest definition, leitmotifs are identifying sonic tags. When someone talks about the sword, you hear the sword's theme. Leitmotifs certainly function this way in The Ring, but they are less finished melodies than charged fragments, which transcend their context and gesture forward or backward in time. They not only illustrate the action, but indicate what characters are thinking or sensing, or even what they are unable to perceive. As The Ring proceeds, Wagner handles his leitmotifs in increasingly cavalier, even subversive ways. The motif, commonly called renunciation of love, first sounds in Rheingold as the Rhine Maiden Voglinde explains how the gold can be won. It is heard again in Valkyrie when Sigmund is preparing to pull the sword Nothung from the tree. There, its purpose is more obscure and has stirred much speculation. So he's using those motifs to weave ideas, into the work. But apparently he resented the idea of them being that. Like for him, they were much more than just these simple phrasings. It is really pleasurable when you're consuming the entirety of the Ring cycle, and you're like, it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio gif. It's like, oh, I recognize that, or you first hear that Velka bump, but it's not the full idea. There's this beautiful
Mm.
one thing that he was very, very famous for, and I'm not sure I have it in my outline, but there is I think it's in, oh yeah, we'll come to it. It's in Tristan and Isolde, where there's a chord that is not resolved, and it's a metaphor for their love. And it seems like
Right.
such a basic idea, but that was a new idea. Like it would have been unthinkable to like not finish in a grand way, like a musical
Mm.
idea at the end of an act, and he doesn't. And so he creates this huge sexual tension throughout Tristan and Isolde. It's like this. It's a metaphor for the sexual tension, erotic tension, and in one of the pieces of material I watched, they were like, if he had only done that, we would still remember him for that idea. So very significant, very modern.
Hmm.
Very modern. Okay. Yes. A profound personal turning point also occurred in 1854. Wagner discovered the philosophy of Arthur Schopenhauer, future friend of the show. I believe I'm doing Schopenhauer next on Art of
Next.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Woo! Schopenhauer's pessimistic worldview, exalting music as the highest art and advocating renunciation of worldly desires, hit Wagner like a revelation. He later said that reading Schopenhauer was the most important event of his life. It changed his creative direction. A little more from Wagnerism here. Just love this book. I got a few of the pages wet last night. I was, like one of my coasters let me down. Let's see here. Why do I have this page open? Let's see. It must be Die Valkyrie and Metaphysics. In the summer of 1854, Wagner arrived at Valkyrie, the first full-length opera of The Ring. Settled in Zurich, he composed at a manic pace. By September, he had churned his way through the first act, in which Sigmund and Sieglinde, Wotan's twin offspring, fall in love without knowing each other's identity. So there's incest in this. Despite
Oh.
the scandalousness of the situation, or perhaps because of it, 19th century audiences found these scenes as rousing as any popular romance of the day. The climactic cascade of sensations, Sigmund's ardent song of love and spring, Sieglinde's equally ardent answer, Sigmund's drawing of the sword from the tree, the final orgasmic embrace, is a tour de force of hot-blooded romantic entertainment. In the second act, the emotional temperature plummets. Wotan enters in a buoyant mood, convinced that he has found a way to regain the ring. Having surrendered the gold to Fafner, Wotan cannot revoke the deal on account of the contracts etched into his spear. I love that idea of contracts etched into the spear.
Mhm.
Yet the wild human Sigmund would appear to be free of his father's will and of godly commitments. Surely he can win the ring from Fafnir, who has taken the precautions of turning himself into a dragon. Love it. Fricka, Wotan's disgruntled spouse, proceeds to pick the plan apart. Incestuous love is an outrage, she says, and Sigmund's independence is a sham. The free man is transparently a pawn. Fricka demands that Wotan stand aside when Siglinda's husband, Hunding, comes seeking satisfaction. Wotan descends into a 20-minute monologue of anguish.
Of course he does.
As one does. A father, I have had, as a father, I too have had 20-minute monologues of anguish. The chief of the gods comes to understand his own powerlessness and beyond that, the inevitability of his end. And of course, these things are sort of stand in as metaphor for the political situation. The gods are signify the old order, the nobility, the aristocracy that's going to be overthrown. Wagner wrote of this scene. If it is presented as I require, and if all my intentions are fully understood, it is bound to produce a sense of shock beyond anything previously experienced. Okay. So yeah, I think I had that in there because I just wanted to talk a little bit about Wagner and the Valkyrie and what's going on in that stuff. But he read Schopenhauer,
Sure.
yeah, and we'll cover Schopenhauer soon. Hmm. I just have to get through Wagner here, and then we have
Yeah.
a Crowley Darkroom tomorrow. It's going to be fun. We'll talk about Mr. Crowley.
Hmm.
Yep. All right. In 1857, about midway through composing the Ring cycle, he had begun Siegfried, but halted work on it. Wagner set the Ring aside to focus on a very different opera, one fueled by Schopenhauerian philosophy and by his own tumultuous emotions, Tristan und Isolde. And that's the one about impossible love. Okay, where could
Hmm.
this come from? Well,
Oh no.
we having fun, Abby? You having a good time?
Yeah.
Uh, he's a bastard. He's a bastard. What are you going to do? By the late 1850s, Wagner's personal life and artistic life converged in the creation of Tristan und Isolde, which is still performed widely. A music drama of intense, tragic love. Still exiled in Zurich, Wagner had been living under the patronage of a wealthy silk merchant, Otto Wiesendonck, who provided the composer a cottage on his estate. So Wiesendonck was this new money, upper middle class, sort of wealthy, rich, but not, noble. So they had this little exchange where Wagner provided this sort of artistic, you know, credibility, right? Like
Hmm.
it would be a very good taste if you had this, you're supporting this artist, right? Like more people could do this.
If you've got an operatic composer in your garden.
It's a status symbol. It really actually is. I'm keeping Wagner in my garden. Yeah, he's like a little gnome you put on the yard. Yeah, yeah,
He can't leave the country, you see.
yeah. Right, he's stuck with us.
We're ju-
Yeah, but what could possibly
we like
happen?
to discuss the issues
Right.
of the day
Yes,
over punch and oysters.
that's right. Over punch and oysters, naturally. Yeah. Wagner became infatuated with Otto's wife, Matilda Wiesendonck, who in
Oh
turn was
God.
charmed by the composer's genius. It's
He doesn't like it when people have a little power over him, does he?
he is a very, very horny man. There's a certain level of horniness going
Yeah,
on,
but
and he just
the
yeah,
sabotage,
that's
you know.
right, right, just repeated self sabotage, just again and again. Like, oh, this guy's paying my bills. I'm gonna shtup his wife.
Yeah.
Their relationship, likely platonic though emotionally charged, inspired Wagner. He found in the medieval tale of Tristan and Isolde, lovers united only in death, a mirror of his own yearning and despair. In a famous letter to Liszt, he wrote, I shall erect a memorial to the loveliest of all dreams, in which love shall for once find full fulfillment. I've devised in my mind a Tristan and Isolde, the simplest yet most full-blooded musical conception imaginable. And with the black flag that waves at the end, I shall cover myself over to die. Woo! Yeah. So, are you familiar with the Tristan and Isolde story?
I I've heard the title, but no, I am not familiar.
Hmm. Let me look it up right now. I just want to get it. Tristan, are you a big opera person?
Not
Do you go to the
really.
opera? Not really.
No.
You've been to the opera in
I've
the
been
past.
I've been occasionally to the opera. I've definitely been in Vienna, where you we
Hmm.
went to visit Vienna, and you can get the ticket, like you line up on the day and you can get the tickets to stand and watch the opera.
Hmm.
I don't remember which one we went to though. It was
Yeah.
2006.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a fellow who came along in the summer of 1856, and uh, here's what he said about Minna. So Minna's still on the scene, by the way. Poor Minna. Oh no. Uh,
I
Goodness. Yeah, here we go. As a housewife, she was most efficient. In their days of distress, she cheerfully performed what are vulgarly termed menial services. In this, she is as fitting a parallel as of Mrs. Carlyle as Wagner is of Carlyle. Minna's, I assume, a happy couple. Minna's efforts in the house in sustaining Wagner in the dark days is the pendant of Mrs. Carlyle's scrubbing the floors of the little house at Scottsburg in the wilds of Scottish moors. Okay, so he's saying she was, she was a good wife. She was looking after
mm.
him, even when they were, in exile in Zurich, which she considered provincial. Yeah.
Even though she had every reason to leave and
Yes.
probably a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely. Um, so it was the affair with Matilda Wiesendonck while Wagner was working on Tristan and Isolde in 1857 that provoked the final breach between Minna and Wagner. After her discovery of a letter from Wagner to Matilda in April of 1858, Minna accused them of adultery, which Wagner denied, claiming that Minna had put a vulgar interpretation on his letter. Minna took the view that Wagner had been seduced by Matilda and in subsequent letters referred to her as that hussy and that filthy woman.
She's just my girl best friend.
She's just my work wife. Um, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. You're out of your mind. So I got a little something here. Yeah. No, okay. I think it's good here. So let's see. Wagner and Minna parted. Wagner to travel to Venice and Minna to take the waters at Brestenburg. Oh boy, if your wife has to take the waters, you're really messed up, man. Flowers aren't going to fix that.
No.
In an attempt to improve her worsening heart condition. That's sad. Minna wrote to Matilda before departing for Dresden. So this is Minna to Matilda. I must tell you with a bleeding heart that you have succeeded in separating my husband from me after nearly 22 years of marriage. May this noble deed contribute to your peace of mind, to your happiness. Minna later described Tristan and Isolde as a much too enamored and odious couple.
Girl, you won. Just leave.
Get out. Ugh. Wagner began composing Tristan and Isolde in 1857, taking a break from the Ring. I too needed a break from the Ring by the time it was done. He also penned the Wiesendonck Lieder at this time, a set of 5 songs on poems by Matilda Wiesendonck, which he explicitly labeled studies for Tristan, as they explored similar love-longing themes. The opera composition was completed by 1859. Yeah, she was a poet, I believe, this Wiesendonck woman. So yeah, Tristan and Isolde, opera in 3 acts, set to a German. It's all German, loosely based on the medieval 12th century romance Tristan and Isolde by Gottfried von Strasberg, and his composition was inspired in part by the philosophy of Arthur Schopenhauer, as well as by his relationship with his muse Matilda Wiesendonck. The opera, which explores existential themes such as that of mankind's insatiable striving and the transcendental nature of a supreme love beyond death, incorporates spirituality from Christian mysticism as well as Vedantic and Buddhist metaphysics, subjects that also interested Schopenhauer. As such, Wagner was one of the earliest Western artists to introduce concepts from the Dharmic religions into their work.
Hmm.
Fun. Now, Tristan and Isolde is widely acknowledged as one of the greatest achievements of Western art music. Okay. Okay. Not a joke. Like, serious. Intriguing audiences with philosophical depths not usually associated with opera, and the terrible and sweet infinity of its musical poetic language. Its advanced harmony, immediately announced by the famous opening Tristan chord of its prelude, which we're going to talk about, marks a defining moment in the precognition of modern music, characterized by unprecedented use of chromaticism, tonal ambiguity, orchestral color, and prolonged harmonic suspension. I'm inventing modern music. While these innovations divided audiences initially, the opera grew in popularity and became enormously influential among Western classical composers, providing direct inspiration to Bruckner, Mahler, Strauss, Berg, Schoenberg, and Britten. Other composers such as Debussy, Ravel, and Stravinsky formulated their styles in contrast to Wagner. So at this point now, you're either for or against Wagner as a composer. You have to like wrestle now with what he's done, which is why we're talking about him on Art of Darkness at all. And I'll confess to an amount of philistinism around music and music history. I mean, I played music when I was younger. I was awful at it. I'm a bit tone deaf. I love music. I will go to the opera. I'm not some devotee.
Mm.
But we know it's important. They tell us it's important. The work is still performed. So now, Tristan's radical music pushed tonal harmony to its limits. The very first chord of the opera, the famous Tristan chord, introduced unprecedented chromatic tension and ambiguity, delaying musical resolution until the opera's very end. So he creates, because it's, of course, it's this opera about, impossible love, love that's only reconciled in death, and boom, we're going to set up a chord that's not going to be resolved until the end. Perfect, simple metaphor, but it wasn't,
Hmm.
this was inconceivable until he did it. Okay. And I'm reading from appreciateopera.org. Thank you,
Okay.
appreciateopera.org. Few chords are as significant as the Tristan chord. The Tristan chord opens Richard Wagner's opera Tristan and Isolde in a spectacular way. It is known for its depth and slight dissonance, which brings an uneasy feeling to the listener. This reaction on the part of the listener, of course, is intended. He's not entertaining. Throughout the
Mm.
opera, or not merely entertaining. Throughout the opera, this chord, which is made up of the notes F, B, D sharp, or is it? Yeah, D sharp and G sharp. Yeah, I think it's sharp. Does not resolve. Rather, it seems to grow more and more unsettling as the drama continues. For it is symbolic of the tension and unfulfilled desires of Tristan. The beauty of the Tristan chord is that it resolves not to a tonic, but to another discord, and later to another. So it's not resolving. It's like, the Tristan chord only resolves at the end of the opera, following Isolde's Liebestod, love death, which is a sort of dying rant. Interestingly, Wagner originally called the prelude to the opera the Liebestod, and the above mentioned aria Verklärung, Transfiguration. It was Franz Liszt who assigned the famous name to the aria when he called his piano transcription of the aria the Liebestod. The chord's development is a prime example of Wagner's music telling the story of the opera just as perfectly, if not more so, than the libretto. Okay?
Mm.
All right. The chord is known today as the Tristan chord, meaning the chord from the opera Tristan and Isolde. But the chord is not unique to the opera at all. It is heard, albeit briefly, in Beethoven's Piano Sonata number 18, as well as in works by Mozart, Chopin, Liszt, and others. This is not to say that Wagner stole this chord, even if he had heard it before, which is likely. Which is what is fascinating about Tristan und Isolde is Wagner's use of it, the development of the chord. Listen, Tristan and Isolde, which was composed after Wagner completed the second part of the Ring tetralogy, Die Valkyrie, is known for its emotional power. A tenor died suddenly shortly after singing the role of Tristan during Wagner's lifetime. Two conductors have died while conducting the second act of the opera. The opera brings tears to its audience and continues to fascinate scholars and even casual opera goers today. This is for a number of reasons, but it is primarily the music that carries the way, and the music is led by the Tristan chord. We're not going to do that thing where we jam in some audio into this episode, but if you want to go and listen to Tristan and Isolde to know what I'm talking about, it might be worth it. It's G. Those are sharps, so G sharp. Did I say sharp? I
Yeah,
did. Yeah,
you
I'm
did.
not
Yeah.
that much of a Philistine. I would have been, yeah, years and years and years suffering in band, hating it. That's me. But
Why did the
it's
conductors die?
I, because maybe they had orgasms. Maybe the orgasm was too much for them. It's entirely possible, Abby. So I got a little more about the Tristan chord, um, and this is from and this starts with the Lohengrin riot of 1887. I had not heard of that. This starts with Wagnerism. That would have been after his time, I believe. In January and February of 1860, Wagner conducted 3 concerts of his music in Paris, hoping to conquer the city that had largely shunned him in his youth. He had set his sights on the staging of Tristan und Isolde, his latest and boldest creation. To that end, he included the prelude to Tristan on his programs alongside selections from the Flying Dutchman, Tannhauser, and Lohengrin. Concert performances of the prelude had already taken place in Prague and Leipzig, but the Paris of the Second Empire, crowded as it was with Republicans, anarchists, bohemians, and the literary vanguard, promised the ideal audience. In the throng at the Theatre Italien was Charles Baudelaire, the dark prince of French poetry. We need to cover Baudelaire, who had won infamy 3 years earlier with the publication of Les Fleurs du Mal, the Flowers of Evil. The Death of Lovers from that collection already has the air of Tristan. Vying to spend their last heat, our 2 hearts will be 2 vast torches, reflecting their double light in the twin mirrors of our souls. To prepare his listeners, Wagner wrote a program note in which he laid out the rudiments of the story. Tristan, the nephew of King Mark of Cornwall, is sailing from Ireland with Princess Isolde, who has been betrothed to Mark as part of a political bargain. Isolde is enraged because the same Tristan killed her fiancé in battle. During the voyage, she asked Jean, her attendant, to prepare a death potion, which she and Tristan will drink together. I'm going to say Brangaine, unwilling to part with her mistress, serves a love potion instead. Oh dear. The prelude gives a preview of the music that accompanies the drinking of the philter, but it stands as an independent orchestral statement in which we hear, and this is Wagner, insatiable longing well up from the shyest confession of the tenderest attraction, through anxious sighs, hopes and hesitation, laments and wishes, raptures and torments, to the mightiest onrush, the most violent effort, to find the breach that shows the infinitely yearning heart the way into the sea of endless loving rapture. In vain, powerless, the heart sinks back to languish in longing without attainment, since each attainment leads only to renewed desire until a final exhaustion, the breaking glance catches a glimpse of the attainment of the highest rapture. It is the rapture of dying, of ceasing to be, of the final deliverance into that wondrous realm from which we stray farthest when we try to penetrate it with the stormiest force. Do we call it death, or is it the nocturnal wonder world out of which, the legend tells us, an ivy and a vine once grew in intimate embrace over the grave of Tristan and Isolde? Wagner chose not to issue this program, apparently because Matilda Wiesendonck, the object of his own Tristan-like affections, deemed it too personal in tone. In a letter to her, it's like, read the room, tone it down, Ricard, tone it down. It's true. It's really actually pretty funny. He's confessing to having this like impossible desire. In a letter to her, he parsed his music in terms of what he described as the Buddhist theory of the origin of the world. A breath clouds the clear expanse of heaven. Okay, there you go. So that's a little bit about Tristan and Isolde. It's actually awesome that if you're looking for one Wagner thing and you're not like The Ring is like too much, I would Tristan and Isolde give that a listen. One early conductor of Tristan, Hans von Bülow, quipped that Wagner's score contained music one can't even whistle, pointing to its novel. Isn't that fun? Pointing to its novel complexity. Indeed, when Wagner tried to have Tristan produced in Vienna in 1861, the performers gave up after 70 rehearsal sessions, declaring the music impossible to play. earning Tristan a reputation as unperformable. Okay, we're getting into the third act here, I promise. Um, During these same years, Wagner's long exile was coming to an end. In 1860, he received a partial amnesty allowing him to re enter Germany, though not Saxony. Can't come into
Okay.
Saxony. You can come into Germany, not Saxony. He visited Paris again in 1861 for a notorious production of Tannhauser at the Paris Opera. That Paris Tannhauser, with added ballet music, turned into a fiasco. My understanding is that he wanted to put the ballet in the second act, or no, in the first act, but the gentlemen of the town would typically not arrive until the second act, and they would be
Oh,
pissed if they
right.
missed the ballet because they want to see the pretty
Sure.
ballet dancers. But
Hmm.
the gentlemen would be busy coming from their mistresses, no doubt, right?
Hmm.
And they would be seated for the second act. So it was like that kind of thing. And there's actually I think it's Richard Burton plays Wagner in this miniseries. I think it's like a BBC miniseries. Yeah, 1983 miniseries. Richard Burton plays Wagner. If you're into that, and they show this at one point, and he's of course stubbornly keeping it in the first act. So if that's true, this would be why it turned into a fiasco. Snobbish members of the Jockey Club, the Paris Jockey Club, disrupted the performances with whistles and
Short and
jeers.
angry.
And Wagner withdrew the opera after 3 nights amid scandal. After the fiasco of the Paris Tannhauser in July of 1861, that is brutal too, because they're producing this shit themselves. Like they're getting everybody together, they're paying everybody, they're getting the show up,
Hmm.
and in 3 days you got to pull it down. I mean, that is a disaster.
I just looked it up, and this would have been around the same time that Degas was painting ballet dancers in Paris. And it was like they were sort of doubly ballet dancers and also kind of working girls. So that explains the like second act thing.
Yeah, I mean, and if you watch the Richard Burton documentary, he talks about the whoring and then this and that. Yeah, so yeah, the stage is almost like a butcher shop for sex. We're going to put
Mhm.
these ladies up there, and then the men who have means will come and find them, and it's sort of understood what we're doing here. And Wagner's like
Patrons of the arts.
patrons of the arts. Nothing changes.
Oh.
So uh, after the fiasco, he went to Vienna, while Minna went again to Bad Soden, no doubt to take the waters, and then to Dresden, where she, Natalie, and her parents lived at Wagner's expense. So now Wagner is keeping
Finally.
yeah, keeping Wagner is keeping her. He give him that. You got to give Wagner that much. He never abandoned her financially. Like he did take care of her and her family when he had started having these successes. In
So not
February
like
18,
Picasso.
these two, I mean, these two in a bastard contest is a pretty big. It would be hilarious to put Wagner in a room with Picasso without a language barrier. I would just love to see that. That would just be amazing. Epic rap battles of history, of art history. Yeah, in February of 1862, when Wagner was living in Beibrich, Minna made a surprise visit to him. And of course, Freud would say surprises are always acts of hostility, which started well, but all the old troubles were stirred when a letter from Matilda Wiesendonck arrived. Wagner referred to this period as 10 days of hell. In June of 1862, this is the worst marriage. Like I'm actually going to say this is worse than Burroughs because at least the Burroughs marriage ended abruptly and she didn't suffer.
Anymore.
Yeah, at least it was just over. It was just you're at a drunken party in Mexico
Oh my
City.
God.
There's a gun pointed at you, and it's suddenly over. In June of 1862, he suggested they divorce. However, Min refused to consider this. And this is divorce in the 19th century, man. This is like, oof, rough. It's not like now. Despite her repeated requests for him to join her in Dresden, he would not. Minna and Wagner were never to live together again, but neither did they divorce. Minna was financially supported by Wagner for the rest of her life. Okay, give him some credit. Like truly, there's a little bit of credit there for Wagner. He's
which
not, you know,
can't have lasted much longer if he got married
well,
again, right?
we're gonna get into it, aren't we?
Okay.
You're no, you're good. You're right ahead of it here, Abby. By 1862, a full amnesty was granted, and Wagner could finally return to German lands freely. He settled in Beibrich near Vienna and resumed work on another opera he had sketched back in Zurich. He was prolific. The Master Singers of Nuremberg, Die Meistersinger von Nuremberg. A very different project. A comic opera was his only mature comedy set in historic Nuremberg, which is famous for some other things now. Celebrating German art and tradition through a story of a medieval guild of master singers. Wagner wrote its libretto in 1862 and composed much of the music in the following years, though Tristan still preoccupied him. By this point, Wagner was living apart from Minna, their marriage was effectively over, but they stayed married. Um, and now we get into Act Three. What could possibly save him? What could possibly bring Wagner to the point where he was able to build a Festspielhaus in Beirut? Royal rescue. Okay. So after all these years of socialism and railing against the nobility and a man of the people, he's we have a Deus ex machina, but not before Wagner begins an affair with Cosima von Bülow, who's married to the one of the conductors that Wagner works with, and who is the daughter of Liszt. Okay, so she's 26 years old at this point. He's what, 24 years her senior, something to that effect. And at this point, Liszt breaks off contact because Liszt breaks off contact. Like you're sleeping with my daughter.
So he's left behind the wife of his patron. And
Yes,
he's like, "Oh, there's my actual wife. It's not crazy enough for me. I'm gonna go and drum up some trouble with my friend's daughter, my friend who's been
supporting and advocating for me,
supporting me for
and who is a genius himself.
yeah, uh, the wife of somebody else who works with me. Yeah, he just loves
Now I
drama.
want now I want everybody to listen here. I want everybody to listen here because I'm in my 40s and I know there's somebody out there who's like some young man, some young dude out there who's listening, who's 18, who is sitting on a fortune. I know you're out there. There's a lot of money. I visit places like London, New York. There's a lot of money. I've seen Succession. Okay, I know y'all are sitting on some money, and I just want you to hear this story, and I want you to like really think about what it would be like to support an artist in such an extravagant way, or a podcaster. Okay, I'm just planting seeds. Planting seeds. We will fly business class. Coach, maybe. It depends on where you're flying us and for what type of event. If there's going to be punch and oysters, we'll fly coach. All right? Okay. I want to do more. I want to get out there and do more stuff with Art of Darkness. All right. In 1864, Wagner's fortunes experienced a sudden reversal thanks to an unexpected savior, the new king of Bavaria, Ludwig II. Ludwig II was only 18 when he ascended the throne, and he happened to be an ardent admirer of Wagner's operas. Upon hearing Lohengrin and reading Tristan, the young king was seized with an ecstatic admiration for Wagner. In May of 1864, Ludwig summoned, you want to be summoned, that's good, the 51-year-old composer to Munich. At this point, Wagner was hiding from creditors and on the verge of bankruptcy again. But Ludwig swept in like a fairy tale prince. The king settled Wagner's debts, provided him a generous stipend, and installed him in a villa in Munich.
And did he pay
Ludwig's.
him back by fucking his mother or something?
I don't know that anything like that ever happened. Like, I think this is the one where Wagner finally said, "Okay,
Okay.
yep." I think this is the one where he's like, you're not going to bite this hand, okay? Ludwig's devotion, and I want our listeners to listen to this very closely. Ludwig's devotion bordered on worship. Under Ludwig's patronage, Wagner suddenly had the resources to stage his work on an extravagant scale. So he kept at it. He didn't give up. Age gap, Cosima, and now people are starting to worship him. Like the people who get his work, like again, it's worship, and it's like Cosima was worship. I'm just trying to keep us in time here.
He's probably like, and now people get it. See, this
Right,
is what I've been looking for.
that's right. Finally, people understand that they have to worship me.
They
They
have
have to
to
pay
worship
my
me
debts and worship
and
me
give me the money.
and give me all the monies.
Like I am the church.
That's right. That's right. That's very. It was a church. It is a church of Wagner. All right. So this, the my life ends in right around this period right here. So let me see here. I'm just going to read, and this is probably be the last. Well, some of the last I read from this. I hope thereafter I intended to live in great seclusion, and I hoped obscurity as well, in order to try to assemble the funds to pay my Viennese debts. Eckert received me in an extremely cordial manner. His wife, who had been one of the great beauties of Vienna, had given up a very advantageous position out of some fanciful desire to be married to an artist, and she had retained enough money to enable her to provide the mere conductor with a comfortable and hospitable home, of which I now gained a pleasurable impression. Eckert considered it his absolute duty to take me to the manager of the theater, Baron von Gall. The latter alluded quite sensibly and sympathetically to my difficult situation in Germany, where everything would continue to remain closed to me, he believed, as long as the ubiquitous Saxon diplomats and agents went around trying to injure me by spreading all kinds of suspicion. After getting to know me better, he thought he might be able to intervene on my behalf at the Württemberg court. While I was talking over these matters rather late in the evening of May 3rd, at the Eckert's house, a card was brought to me, left by a gentleman with the title Secretary to the King of Bavaria. Disagreeably surprised that my presence in Stuttgart was already known to people passing through, I asked that he be told I wasn't there, after which I withdrew to my hotel, only to be informed by its proprietor that a gentleman from Munich wished to speak to me on an urgent matter. I agreed to an appointment for 10 o'clock the following morning and spent a restless night preparing myself, as always now, for the worst. The next day, I received Herr Pfistermeister, the cabinet secretary of His Majesty the King of Bavaria, in my room. He began by expressing his great pleasure at having found me here, thanks to some fortuitous directions, after having hunted for me in vain in Vienna and finally even in Mariafeld on Lake Zurich. He's getting chased all around Europe. It's like a fairy tale. He brought me a note from the young King of Bavaria, together with a portrait and a ring as a present, in words which, though few, penetrated to the core of my being. The young monarch avowed his great admiration for my art and his firm resolve to keep me at his side as a friend forever, to spare me any malignant strokes of fate. At the same time, Herr Pfistermeister, what an incredible name, Pfistermeister, notified me that he had instructions to conduct me to the king at once, and asked for my permission to announce to his master by telegram that I would be there the following day. I had been invited to lunch at the Eckert's house. Herr Pfistermeister was obliged to decline to accompany me there. My friends, who had meanwhile been joined by young Weisheimer from Osthofen, were understandably amazed and overjoyed at the news I brought them. While we were at lunch, Eckert was informed by telegram that Meyerbeer had just died in Paris, his Jewish composer enemy. Weisheimer burst out into boorish laughter at the strange coincidence that this operatic master, who had done me so much harm, should not have lived to see this day. So what a day for him. His nemesis dies. He gets a letter from the king. Herr von Gall also made an appearance to admit in friendly astonishment that I would certainly no longer be in need of his good offices. He had already given the order for a production of Lohengrin and now paid me the stipulated sum on the spot. At 5 o'clock that evening, I met Herr Pfistermeister at the railroad station to travel with him to Munich, where my visit to the king had already been announced for the following day. On the same day, I had received the most urgent warnings from Vienna not to return there, but my life was to have no more such alarms. The dangerous path on which destiny now beckoned me to the highest goals would not be free of worries and troubles of a kind hitherto unknown to me, but under the protection of my exalted friend, the meanest cares of subsistence were never to touch me again. He's got a fan. He's got a number
Uh,
one fan. He's
uh,
got an ultra fan in the King of Bavaria. The 18-year-old King of Bavaria is a Wagnerite
who,
and
yeah, who probably loves operas with big feelings because he is a teenager.
a teenage king. The teenage king of Bavaria thinks you are a rock star and wants and is going to
And
take
it's
care
like,
of
I am gonna
everything.
pay you to be my friend.
Yeah, just going to wipe out your debts. I got to be careful what I do with my arm here, during this episode. Just
Oh
wipes
my
out all
God.
the debts. Can you believe this? So this bastard he just gets and here we are. And that happens. And
I
there you go.
hate this so much.
Why do you hate that?
I just do. He's just such a bastard. And then all his problems are solved in a day.
In a day. In a day. What a day.
What a
Um,
day.
he put the work in. What are you going to do? All right. So, and now he's involved, of course, with Cosima and a little more here. After establishing himself in Tribschen, and this is Vielma classical. After establishing himself in Tribschen, Switzerland, and the time here may be a little out of order, Wagner
Mhm.
invited the von Bülows to visit. Hans arrived a few days after Cosima, leaving the host and Cosima alone together. Whoops. 9 months
Whoops.
later, Cosima gave birth to Isolde Wagner, was
Oh.
still married to Hans. And on June 10th, 1965, Hans von Bülow, no pullout game at all, conducted the premiere of Tristan and Isolde in Munich. Okay?
So he names his baby daughter after his muse
Well, no, Isolde is
character.
from, yeah, Isolde is from and then they would have a son named Siegfried too.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And so she's married to the guy who is conducting Tristan and Isolde. Okay.
Right.
He leaves him alone with her. 9 months later, they have a baby. He goes on
Hmm.
to conduct the premiere of
Right.
of the man who, right, cucked him.
Yeah.
Okay. Wagner's wife Minna dies in 1866, and Cosima
Okay.
divorces von Bülow to marry Ricard. And this is a huge scandal, by the way. This is a
Hmm.
European-wide, pan-European. Anybody knows about this, but he can get away with it now because he's the king. The teenage king is like, this is my guy. And, I mean, and this guy who was like throwing grenades, on the barricades of Dresden for socialism is now under the patronage of the king.
Yeah. Because the king's like, oh my God, so cool.
It is cool. I mean, the music is cool. It's awesome. The music's awesome. I mean, the king had good taste. She devoted herself to the work of her new husband and established a domestic life that allowed Ricard to concentrate on the composition of the Ring Cycle. He expressed his happiness at his harmonious married life in the Siegfried Idyll, a tone poem for chamber orchestra. It was conducted by the composer and performed by 15 musicians on the stairs of their home in Tribschen on the morning of Cosima's birthday. Okay, so now he's with Cosima. And, I mean, it was very scandalous, and Liszt was not having it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my life ends, mein Leben. It ends in 1864. There are just a few omissions. Um, Let me see. Where are they? Yeah. So there's stuff about like stuff that's left out because of Cosima because they didn't want the Cosima affair to be kind of. I mean, Cosima didn't want this. put out. The history of
Mm.
this alone is fascinating, like where it came out. I mean, it's just massive. I mean, it's a tome.
Yeah,
It's
that is
just
big.
big. Yeah, it's a doorstopper. All
He
right.
has a lot to say about himself.
Well, yeah, and I believe a lot of it was like dictated to Cosima, and and I think again they were just sort of like polishing the turd a little bit,
Hmm.
so to speak. The first fruits of the royal patronage was the fruit rather was the long delayed premiere of Tristan and Isolde, conducted by Hans von Bülow, which I'm just trying to imagine the mentality of this. Like you're this guy, he's had an affair with her. She's pregnant. I just don't under. And then you go on and you conduct his opera. Like just, I'm just trying to like. It makes the poly relationships of today look weak. Like these people were poly. These people were not. They didn't have a word for it. They would just say, "Well, we're bohemians. We're artists." I mean, my God, don't leave your young wife alone with Wagner. Holy moly! So it finally premieres in Munich in June of 1865. Its shimmering, intensely chromatic music astonished listeners. Many regard the Tristan premiere as a watershed moment in music. One reviewer in 1865 wrote that Wagner's art reaches the outer limits of what music can express. His personal life drew public disapproval. The scandal of his affair with Cosima, who bore Wagner's child in April of 1865, outraged Munich's conservative court. Amid gossip and pressure from his ministers, King Ludwig was compelled to ask Wagner to leave Munich later in 1865 to quiet the scandal. Get out of here. Wagner retreated to the villa of Tribschen on Lake Luzern in Switzerland, but Ludwig remained a loyal supporter from afar. Minna Wagner died of a heart attack in 1866 in Dresden. Wagner did not attend the funeral, which is very sad to me.
Hmm.
Despite the turmoil, Wagner's creativity continued. He completed The Master Singers of Nuremberg, and it premiered the next year in Europe, or in Munich, in Europe, of course, in Munich, 1867. Meistersinger was an immediate success, a warm human comedy with luminous orchestration and rousing choruses. Even critics who disliked Wagner's earlier radical works found it delightful. Meanwhile, Cosimo von Bülow had finally left her husband to live with Wagner. They had two more children together and married in 1870 after Cosimo's divorce. So Wagner's wife has to die, right? And then Cosimo has to probably get a scandalous divorce. On
Hmm.
Christmas morning of 1870, he gives her the Siegfried Idol, and it's performed. And this is where he is finally finding domestic happiness. Like, I, yes, age gap, okay, but he has found his
With
partner.
his daughter age worshipping wife.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what he needed all along. He
Just
is
to,
the Flying
and just to
Dutchman.
like maybe just stick it a little to his mate who supported him all these years because he wasn't exiled to anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, she seemed very happy too. She was not. Nobody forced her hand here, and
Yeah, I
she
mean,
was
good
of
for her.
well of age, and the daughter of a composer. What is she looking for? She's looking for her composer, the illegitimate
Yeah.
daughter of a composer. She's looking for her guy.
Hmm.
And she found him in Wagner. I'm going to talk a little more about Nietzsche and Wagner in the After Dark. I'm going to move this because there's only so much I can do here. And yeah, there's just a lot. So much Nietzsche. I read a lot of Nietzsche when I was younger, and I really didn't understand the whole Wagner thing. I mean, I should have looked into
Hmm.
Wagner earlier. Now I understand Wagner had a whole philosophy baked into his works, and Nietzsche was friends with him and admired him, and had to wrestle with him. We'll talk about that a little more on the After Dark. Okay, 1869, Wagner resumes work on The Ring after a 12-year break, and then Das Judentum in der Musik returns. He's got to publish it again under his own name, apparently.
Of course.
Right, right, right. So I'm going to read a little bit from Wagnerism. In the 60s, 1860s, obviously, Wagner continued to blame Jews for the setbacks he encountered, but he now directed His ire mainly at journalists. His chief foe was the influential Viennese music critic Edward Hanslick, a Catholic and of half Jewish descent. At first, Hanslick had belonged to the pro-Wagner camp, but in 1858, he backed away and joined the opposition. Wagner's first act of retribution was to associate Hanslick with the character of Beckmesser in Meistersinger, the obnoxious pedant who performs the role of Merker or judge in Meistersinger contests. Although the character had been conceived many years earlier, Hanslick almost certainly affected the end result. In prose drafts from 1861, the Merker bears the name Veit Hanslick. Given that background, Hanslick gave Meistersinger a surprisingly warm review at its 1868 premiere. The soaring quintet in Act 3 caused his skepticism to melt away. He was less solicitous toward Tristan, saying that the prelude made him think of the old Italian painting of that martyr whose entrails were slowly unreeled from his body. Jeez. Man, the state of criticism now is desperate. There's nothing like this going on right now. We could use some more of this back and forth, like where like a living art is being criticized and revised and people are working. I don't know where any of that is happening. It's certainly not happening here in Minnesota. Wagner suspected without foundation that Hanslick had conspired to foil the attempted Viennese premiere of Tristan. German anti-Semitism had abated in the 60s. The emancipation of the Jews in the North German Confederation in 1869 met with little immediate resistance. But the composer's paranoia about Jewish journalism portended the next wave. In that same year, Wagner made the enormously consequential decision to reprint Jewishness in Music under his own name. His authorship of the essay had been exposed as early as 1851, but memories of it had faded. The 1869 publication as a freestanding pamphlet, we got a pamphlet, touched off an uproar. Far from restraining his younger self, Wagner wrote an extended afterword in which he piled on new insults. A diatribe against Hanslick makes sneering references to the critic's delicately hidden Jewish background. The darkest new thought is this: I cannot judge whether the decline of our culture could be halted through the violent expulsion of the corrosive foreign element, because this would require powers whose existence is unknown to me. Dark. An international controversy erupted, and commentaries pro and con flew back and forth. Cosima recorded in her diary that the Karlsruher Zeitung newspaper faulted Wagner for damaging his own cause by treating a whole race of people ruthlessly. That in Paris, the article had stirred up great indignation, that Wagner's sister Louise was sad about the Jewish pamphlet. Princess Victoria told her mother it was perfectly cracked. The essay also elicited much ridicule, evidence that Wagner's anti-Judaism was misaligned with elements of German and Austrian opinion around 1870. A spoof titled Hep Hep, or The Meistersingers of Nuremberg Grand Secretarian Social Democratic Future Opera in 3 contemporary acts, rewrites Meistersinger so that Walter is a Jew who passes himself off as a pure German and is exposed by Beckmesser. Fritz Mauthner's 1878 satire, The Unconscious Ahasverus, or The Thing in Itself as Will and Representation, lays waste to Wagner's prejudice, prose style, intellectual airs, and need for sycophants, appending the motto, if only you'd written just the score, all this scorn would count no more. All right, so he starts eating shit for this, which is right. So here, and they
because
start
he couldn't just be happy.
He could just be happy. He's just such a fucking crank. Everybody in the world has to love him, and if they don't, it's because the guy's half Jewish. Like, get the fuck. Not long after Jewishness in Music resurfaced, the comic writer Moritz Anton Grangin and the composer Josef Koch von Langentrau, both Viennese, concocted a men's chorus called Das Judentum in der Musik, in which passages from the pamphlet are pasted onto Wagner's melodies to ludicrous effect. The lustily singing sailors from the Flying Dutchman are made to deliver the rallying cry of the anti-Jewish riots of 1819. Jewishness here and there. Jews are found everywhere. Hep, 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 hep. So they're satirizing him. They're making fun of him. Yeah. So, okay. So you get the idea. Yeah. And Cosima is even worse.
Right.
Like, Cosima is an even worse anti-Semite than, so there you go. Just a bastard. Um, but he's still working on the ring cycle stuff, which is the great masterwork. So he's a bastard and a genius. And I'm reading still from Wagnerism. I promise I'm bringing it into the home stretch here, Abby. Uh, on November 21st, 1874, Wagner finished the orchestration of Gotterdammerung, which is the end of the fourth of the four, ending a project that he had begun 26 years earlier. Thrice sacred, memorable day, Cosima wrote in her diary. At lunchtime, though, she inadvertently enraged her husband by showing him a letter from her father. Why the letter caused offense is not clear. It seems that Wagner simply found it distracting, but Cosima spiraled into self-castigating despair. The fact that I dedicated my life and suffering to this work has not earned me the right to celebrate its completion in joy, she wrote. The two were later reconciled, but the dispute was a strange way to mark the realization of a work that affirms the triumph of world-changing love. All right, so he finishes the ring cycle after 26 years, and it is ready for staging.
Hmm.
Now, the ring is ready. He had long envisioned presenting the ring in a special theater built to his specifications. To achieve the ideal fusion of music and drama, he decided to build this festival theater, the Festspielhaus, in the Bavarian town of Bayreuth. In 1871, Wagner and Cosima moved to Beirut, and with King Ludwig's financial support and fundraising from Wagner societies across Europe, okay, we have Wagner societies now.
Yeah, I bet we do.
Oh, oh yeah. Construction began on the Bayreuth Festspielhaus, a state-of-the-art opera house with a deep orchestra pit, invisible to the audience, and that was unique. That was new, and innovative acoustics. I think at one point there are like anvils are used. I'm just going to look it up here. Like he was doing stuff like that. Let me get back to my outline here. I'll come back to that. Um, Wagner personally supervised everything from the architecture to the seat plan, ensuring nothing would distract from the drama on stage. That's still there. They still do this. I would like to go to. I would like to go to there. I would like to see it. He was given a villa in Beirut called Vonfried, which means it's a compound of delusion and peace. So Vonfried means crazy peace. So sort of suggesting it's like he's finally has peace from his insanity. It was financed by the king, of course. The house was constructed from 1872 to 1874. The plans were accorded to some ideas of Wagner. You should look this up. Wahnfried, Wahnfried. It's fascinating. He and his family moved in 1874 while the house was still under construction. Engraved across the portal is his motto: Hier wo mein Wohnen Frieden fand, Wahnfried, sei dieses Haus von mir benannt. Here where my delusions have found peace, let this place be named Wahnfried. Eccentric, right? Yeah, eccentric. But he has his own villa. So,
Of course. Yeah.
of course, because the king wants him to have a villa. He has a villa. So I'm at the Festspielhaus website, and I'm just going to read. I'm going to read about the creation of this Festspielhaus. 20 years passed until he Googled the name of the Franconian jewel in the conversation lexicon. Hans Richter had drawn his attention to the vacant Margravial Opera House in the city of Beirut. A year later followed the first visit to the city. The house proved unsuitable for the purpose of the Ring performance, the 16-hour ring cycle. But Beirut pleased the composer. The foundation stone was laid on May 22nd, 1872, but the construction soon came to a standstill. The attempt to build today's festival hall as a crowdfunding project failed. Because of the money, only when King Ludwig provided the necessary funds by credit, the construction finally picked up speed so that on August 13th, 1876, the first Bayreuth Festival could begin. And this is Wagner. I am thinking of really setting the Siegfried to music, but I am not inclined to have it performed at random by the best first best theater. On the contrary, I am entertaining the boldest plans. Then I would have a theater built here according to my plan out of boards, have the most suitable singers come to me, and have everything necessary for this one special case made for me in such a way that I could be sure of an excellent performance of the opera. So there's a little bit about his history. And so here's Wagner a little more. This is from 1851. I intend to present my myth in three complete dramas, which are to be preceded by a great prelude. With these dramas, although each of them should indeed form a self-contained whole, I nevertheless do not mean any repertoire pieces according to modern theater concepts, but for their presentation I adhere to the following plan. At a festival specially designated for this purpose, I intend to perform those three dramas together with the prelude in the course of 3 days with a preliminary evening. I consider the purpose of this performance to be fully achieved if it succeeds me and my artistic comrades, the real performers, to artistically communicate this intention to the spectators who gathered to get to know my intention, to a real feeling, not critical understanding on these 4 evenings. A further consequence is as indifferent to me as it must appear superfluous to me. All right. Little more. This is very important. You can still go to this festival. It's still here. Um, the announcement of the ring was followed half a year later by the cultural political background. Wagner formulated a festival idea to Theodor Uhlig, which can also be read as a kind of Götterdämmerung. I can only think of a performance after the revolution. This is him writing way back. Only the revolution will bring me the artists and the audience. The next revolution must necessarily bring an end to our entire theater industry. They must and will all collapse. This is inevitable. From the rubble I then gather together what I need. What I need, will then find. On the Rhine, I will then set up a theater and invite to a great dramatic festival. After a year of preparation, I will then perform my entire work in the course of 4 days. With it, I will then make the people of the revolution recognize the meaning of this revolution according to the noblest sense. Um, so this is when he lays the foundation stone. My friends and valued patrons, through you, I am today placed in a position such as no artist has ever occupied before me. You believe my promise to found a theater of their own for the Germans and give me the means to erect this theater in a clear design before them. Okay. And we could go on. There's a lot of interesting stuff here about the orchestra pit. Here's what he says, looking back on the first festival. I didn't believe you would bring it about, the emperor said to me. But by whom was this disbelief not shared? If I seriously asked myself who made it possible for me to have a completely executed large theater building entirely according to my specifications, erected by me there on the hill near Beirut, which the entire modern theater world must remain impossible to imitate, as well as that in this theater the best musical dramatic forces united around me to voluntarily undergo an unprecedented, new, difficult, and strenuous artistic task, and to solve it happily to their own amazement, then I can primarily present only these realizing artists themselves. So he's sort of giving credit to the artists. He's like, I am the shepherd. I brought these artists along. We did the most incredible artistic thing of the century. I'm Richard Wagner. Here's my wife, Cosima. He's the dude. He did it. They do it. All right. I know, Abby. Abby, you're loving it. All right. So a little more. So Liszt actually donates to the Festspielhaus, and he resumes correspondence. He goes and visits Von Fried. He visits his daughter, and he does attend the inaugural ring cycle. Dude, if I could go back in history and be anywhere for anything, like seeing the inaugural ring cycle is now very, very high on that list. That would be
Okay.
crazy. It would be wild just to see what the hell is this show up in my t-shirt. It'd be like,
Yeah.
he looks kraut enough. He looks like a kraut. I'd probably end up being an usher or something. I'd have to be staff. Um, they could just tell I'm a peasant. They just know I'm a peasant. They would
It's
just
like
know.
he's not patronizing anybody.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He needs patrons. Patreon.com/artofdarkpod. Please be patrons. So now the ring is ready for staging a cycle of 4 operas spanning 15 hours of music. And crazy. So the dream becomes a reality. The festival is presented in August of 1876. The Emperor of Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm, attends, along with
Mhm.
dignitaries and artists from around Europe, including Tchaikovsky, who, while impressed by parts of the ring, quipped, "After the last notes of Götterdämmerung, I felt as though I had been let out of prison." The premiere of The Ring was, I love that, was a landmark in theater history. Nothing of such scope had been staged before. Wagner's music, with its never ending melodies and intricate leitmotif web, left audiences awestruck. One English critic described being overwhelmed by the sheer elemental force of The Ring. Not everyone was enamored. The length and complexity invited parody, such as Rossini's jab that Wagner has wonderful moments and dreadful quarter hours. And anvils are directly written into the score of Der Ring. So in Das Rheingold, in the third scene, he specifies 18 tuned iron anvils. Players strike them with metal hammers. Okay. And then in Siegfried, one large onstage anvil is placed, and percussionists, sometimes the singer, strike it in time with the forging music. How they're produced today, backstage anvils. Many opera houses use sets of steel bars or short railway rails laid on
Mhm.
sandbags. Each bar is tuned to match Wagner's notated pitches, and then the onstage anvil is often a real blacksmith's anvil or a hollow steel replica to reduce weight, amplified slightly so it balances with the orchestra. So it's heavy metal. It's like metal. He's
Mhm.
Wagner is the most heavy metal composer. If you're a metal person, a metal dude, a metal chick, you check out Wagner. He's your guy. Okay. Okay. All right. There was no doubt Wagner had redefined the possibilities of opera. The 1876 festival struggled financially. It ended in debt, and Wagner had to postpone further festivals. Yet Bayreuth had been established as Wagner's holy shrine, a place dedicated solely to his work. So I got a little bit here about Nietzsche. We'll save that for the after dark. Just going to move that back here. Just indulge me here. There's a lot of moving pieces here. A lot of threads in old Duder's head here. The Nietzsche stuff is fascinating. It's just that might I might save some of that for a Nietzsche episode now that I think about it. I'm going to do my best to, to not keep you up past midnight, Abby. Yeah. So there he did it. I mean, he did it. He did the thing.
He
Like if
did it.
you're dreaming of you want to make your Godfather, right, Abby? You want to make your masterpiece film, your
Mhm.
feature. He did it. He did it, and he changed art, and he changed theater, and he brought the emperor to see his stuff, and they went into debt doing it, of course, because he's not good with money, and no doubt the king probably bailed him out. Um,
Yep. He
but there you
tortured
go.
some people along the way.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. And if you think he's never gonna look, his eyes never gonna wander again from Cosima, you're wrong.
Oh
Because
God,
of course it can
why?
just never end. It just never ends. It's just Wagner being Wagner. Can you imagine how egotistical, like how, like if you weren't, because this wasn't like it was highly collaborative, but it is the Wagner show. It's
Yeah, I
Wagner
mean,
Day in Beirut.
any of those paragraphs where he describes his own work or just manifesto-y type stuff, I'm like, you would never get invited to a dinner party at my house.
It's a lot of I me my.
He's
You,
exhausting.
Wagner would be very, very, very tiresome. He would exhaust you. The emotional labor that you would have to do around Richard Wagner would merit a piece in the New Yorker, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, some real emotional labor is taking
Yeah.
place. All right. So we're coming to the end here. Following The Ring, he embarked on his final opera, Parsifal. The subject was a mystical one drawn from the medieval legend of the Holy Grail and obviously influenced by his ideas, his interest in religion and philosophy, Schopenhauer, and Buddhist ideas. It occupied him from 1877 to 1882. Now in his mid 60s, he was concerned with mortality and spiritual themes.
Hmm.
He described it not as an opera, but as I'm going to try to say this: ein Bühnenweihfestspiel, a stage consecration festival play. Okay. So he's getting into like my stuff is religious. This is a religious. And
Yeah.
what's crazy is certain people agree, are like, yes, this is a religious experience to see this work of art. There's a long history of this. I mean, I mentioned that festival where they every 10 years they produce the Passion of the Christ. I mean, there's a long
Hmm.
history of theater and religion are like that, or they should be. They used to be. Yeah, so reflecting on its solemn ritualistic tone, he intended it to be formed only at Beirut to preserve its sanctity. I'm writing Parsifal only for my wife. If I had to depend on the German spirit, I should have nothing more to say. Uh, so he's kind of souring on the German, the whole, German people, because he was an ardent nationalist. I mean, that's really what the Ring Cycle and all this stuff is like. One of the big subtexts is like, we're going to make a German art for German people based on German myths. Enough Italian. It's potato time in Beirut. Okay. Okay, is that okay for the Germans to have their own art? Apparently, Wagner did it, and there it is. So yeah, Parsifal, and the Beirut Festival of 1882 saw the premiere of it, conducted by Hermann Levy, who was Jewish. Okay, interesting.
Okay.
Okay, again, like so. Now here we are. So here's a Jewish conductor who's like, "Oh, I'll work with Wagner. Yeah, he's eccentric. He wrote that garbage, but yeah, I'll compose Parsifal, or I'll conduct Parsifal. Yeah, I. It, it's not like it was a secret, so I just don't know what to make of that. And I've got
Mm.
the punchline at the end of this. I got a couple of them. So stay tuned. We'll bring this to an
I
end, and then
I
we'll
also
come
want
back
to
and do an after
know
dark.
how Wagner would have like how do you would they have had to work together? Like are they having to
Yeah,
sit in a room and be like,
yeah, right.
yeah, I
Yes,
said those
yeah,
things.
absolutely. So okay, okay. I mean, I guess. So here's a little more. This is about Cosima. Far from staying behind the scenes, Cosima was at the forefront of the creation of a festival, the Beirut Festival.
Hmm.
She helped organize the construction of the Festspielhaus, and she promoted it. After the festival in 1876, the couple were financially ruined and the theater deeply in debt. Cosima kind of invented crowdfunding. She launched a public subscription. She launched a subscription to finance Parsifal. Okay.
Hmm.
But despite her devotion, imperfections arose in the marriage. In 1882, Cosima intercepted a love letter to another woman. Okay, and we're going to come up to that. Um, so,
This
yeah,
guy.
I know, unrelenting. The opera's so we're talking about Parsifal. The opera's ethereal music and religious imagery made a profound impression on many listeners. One critic called Parsifal a work of sublime transfiguration. Others found it static or puzzling. By this time, his health is failing. He suffered from heart disease. He would have angina. And in the winter of 1882 to 83, he traveled to Venice seeking rest. And here's what happened. We do know that Richard Wagner died on the 13th of February, 1883, after suffering his final fatal heart attack. However, there is still much debate as to what triggered that fatal attack. The leading English language dictionary asserts the attack followed an uncharacteristically bitter row with Cosima, who was apparently provoked by the announcement of a visit from one of the Parsifal flower maidens, Carrie Pringle, with whom of the Pringle family, the Chips, with
Right.
the Pringle fortune.
Potato Europe.
Again, back to the Chips, with whom it has been alleged Wagner may have been unduly intimate. Other sources consider this pure fiction and declare that the argument with Cosima and Wagner's amorous interest in Carrie Pringle is without credible evidence. While the veracity of this anecdote will surely be discussed for decades to come, Wagner took his last breath at Sa von Dramen Kalergi, a 16th century palazzo on the Grand Canal in Venice. The city of Venice had a special meaning for Wagner as he first stayed there for 7 months in 1858. At that time, he wrote, Venice is a far off world, other times so deeply in harmony with my own desire for solitude. Nothing here has the immediacy of real life. Everything here suggests a work of art. Stay here, I shall. So he would go and he would go and visit Venice frequently, and that is where he died.
So
So
German art for German people, but he needed to go to Italy to get his inspiration.
listen, so
I joke.
yeah, so we're gonna read a little bit. No, no, sometimes Potato Europe and Tomato Europe have to get together. So I'm going to read about what happens
I'll make a
during his
stew.
death. Yeah, right. Well, there you go. Sounds good. Um, yeah. Okay. Memorials in German speaking lands were impassioned and frequently politicized. In Austria, an attachment to Wagner was common among youthful pan Germanists. So people who wanted a united German, because the German language spans, far outside Germany. Those who
Mm.
advocated the unification of Germanic peoples under one national banner. According to the author Hermann Bahr, young Viennese would declare themselves Wagnerites before they had heard a bar of the music. A friend of Barr's once camped out for 3 days at a train station in the mistaken belief that the Meister was due to arrive. As news of Wagner's death rippled outward, his remains journeyed back to Beirut, the Franconian town where he had established his festival and home. The casket was brought by water from the Palazzo Vendramin to the Venice railway station, where it traveled in a mortuary car across Austria to Germany, arriving in Beirut on the evening of February 17th. 3 additional railway carriages were filled with wreaths. 27 firemen kept watch at the station overnight. The funeral began at 4 the following day with a regimental band playing Siegfried's funeral music. After speeches were delivered, a long procession moved slowly through the city toward the villa that Wagner had christened Vonfried. Peace from delusion. The deceased was placed in a tomb that had been built in the yard behind Vonfried next to the grave of his favorite dog, a Newfoundland named Russ. La Venezia did not exaggerate when it said that Cosima Wagner was crazed with grief. Once the guests had departed, the Meisterin, as she would now be known, climbed down into the grave and lay next to the casket. She had ordered her
Wow.
daughters to cut off all her hair, and a velvet cushion containing the shorn locks was placed on the dead man's breast. She seemed to want to die with him. Eventually, Siegfried, her 13-year-old son, persuaded her to return to the house. And she would live until 1930, having remade Beirut as a cultural monument. So she took over Beirut.
Oh my
Wagner's
God.
resting place became a site of homage. One sonneteer took note of a wandering band of loitering pilgrims who entranced stand. John Philip Sousa, the American March King, went to some trouble to gain entrance, persuading the Von Fried housekeeper to let him in when Cosimo was away. Often visitors left with a souvenir. The Boston arts patron Isabella Stewart Gardner took a leaf from the ivy that covered the grave and pressed it into her scrapbook. The composers Anton Bruckner and Emmanuel Chabrier also collected vegetation. Chabrier, oh, hang on here, displayed his Wagner ivy in a box in his office, etc. Some pilgrimages were less sentimental. The African American writer and activist W.E.B. Du Bois, when attending the festival in 1836, walked past the grave twice a day. Mindful of the composer's racist legacy, Du Bois could still write, "The musical dramas of Wagner tell of human life as he lived it, and no human being, white or black, can afford not to know them if he would know life." When Leonard Bernstein stopped at the site, he joked that the slab was big enough that you could dance on it. Bernstein was undoubtedly thinking not only of Wagner, but also of Adolf Hitler, who on his first visit in 1923 stood at the grave for a long time alone. We're going to talk more about that stuff on the After Dark. I just wanted to give an idea of,
Speaking
what.
of young Austrian pan-German fans,
Mhm. Oh yes, yeah, our favorite Austrian. We're going to talk a little bit more about him, about the painter on the After Dark. The New York Times wrote in 1883, "The maestro's influence on art will live on, for good or ill, for generations." Liszt had attended Parsifal as an honored guest, so that relationship was kind of over, and then, or was back, and then Liszt comforts Cosima and helps oversee the memorial, and she takes over Cosima takes over the Beirut festival, and according to his will, and believe it or not, in 1886, Liszt travels to Beirut once more to support Cosima and the struggling festival. They have trouble because it's like sort of almost like it's like a one-off. Wait, you're going to do this every year? You built this building. We're going to do the ring every year. Every year, we're going to do the ring, and we're going to do. And now he's dead. Okay, so what are we doing here, right? And Liszt catches a fever and dies in Beirut in 1886. So,
oh,
yep, yep. And he died at age 74. He was buried. in August of 1886 in the municipal cemetery, according to Cosima. And there was some controversy over this, like, that's not his place, right? But his body was never moved. His body's still there. By 1927, the year of her 90th birthday, Cosima's health was failing. She was blind. The birthday was marked in Beirut by the naming of a street in her honor. And of course, at this point, Hitler's come around already,
Hmm.
1923. Although she was unaware, the family thought that knowledge of the celebrations would overexcite her. In her last years, she was virtually bedridden, became blind, and was lucid only in intervals. She died at 92 on the 1st of April, 1930. After a funeral service at Von Fried, her body was taken to Coburg and cremated. In 1977, 47 years after her death, her urn was recovered from Coburg and buried alongside Wagner in the Von Fried garden. This is the last thing I want to sort of say, and then I'm going to ask you the closing question, and then I got one more little punchy thing. We'll tease the after dark. I hope everybody enjoyed this core episode on the life of Richard Wagner, the life and work. There's more to come. I'll probably do another hour on the after dark. I might pull Nietzsche out, and then we'll just do a Nietzsche episode. So listen to this. On March 5th, Vienna's German Student Association organized a tribute to in the Sophiensaal, where the Strausses once held waltz evenings. Several thousand attended. Okay, a tribute. Several thousand attended. Pan-German rhetoric mounted as the event went on, with anti-Semitic slurs becoming audible. Barr, then a member of the Albia fraternity, delivered a fiery oration. At the climax, he employed a metaphor derived from Parsifal, comparing Germany to Wagner's chaste hero and Austria to the outcast Kundry. The Reich was implored to have mercy and no longer forget the sorely penitent Kundry, still waiting yearningly on the other side of the border for her redeemer. The phrase touched off a commotion, with the students singing Die Wacht am Rhein and the Deutschlandlied. The police intervened. Decades later, Barr remembered George von Schünerer, the pro-German anti-Jewish rabble-rouser, swinging a club and sputtering with anger. The incident drove one Jewish alumnus of Albia to resign from the society in protest, expressing his sorrow that a Wagner memorial had developed into an anti-Semitic demonstration. He wrote, "I would not think of polemicizing here against this retrograde fashion of the day. I will mention only in passing that even as a non-Jew, I would have condemned from the standpoint of the love of freedom this movement to which my fraternity has, to all appearances, been connected. To all appearances, for if one does not audibly protest against action of this kind, one is bound in solidarity to them. Silence gives consent." This was Theodor Herzl, the future architect of the Zionist state. All right. So Theodor Herzl too felt drawn to Wagner, and the composer's anti Semitism did not discourage him. While he was writing The Jewish State in Paris, conceiving of Israel, in 1895, modern Israel, he often attended performances of Tannhauser, Wagner's tale of a wanderer seeking redemption. Only on the evenings when no opera was performed, Herzl later recalled, did I doubt the rightness of my ideas. What are you going to do with that? That's the life and
Well,
work and
I
influence of
mean,
Wagner.
I guess the argument could be like, kill him with kindness, right? Like,
Listen. I mean, right,
Strindberg famously hated women, but
right.
I'll
I can.
like I can just direct his plays out of spite.
I'm just telling you, if Theodor Herzl, one of the architects of the Jewish state, could understand Wagner's anti-Semitism to the level where he leaves an organization because their tribute to Wagner devolves into an anti-Semitic sort of scene. He leaves the organization. Then he goes and he still consumes Wagner's operas religiously and draws inspiration from them. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, Abby, what would Wagner be doing today?
I have no idea.
Probably having affairs.
Probably having affairs. Probably, uh, I don't know.
Are people doing opera now? I mean, like, what art form would he be drawn to? I think he'd be really into cinema, and that's something we're going to talk about on the After
Yeah.
Dark Cow. All cinematic music. I mean, it all goes back to Wagner. Like the original. We'll talk about it. He invented,
Yeah,
like,
maybe he'd
yeah.
be composing for cinema.
Yeah, or making film.
or
I
making
mean,
film.
film itself is a
Since
very,
it
yeah,
needs to be very to his specifications, which I guess
I would be very
directors like to
curious to
do.
see what his if he made a feature film, what it would be about. Probably be about himself. Probably. No, some myth or something. Who knows?
Whatever a myth that ties in with some woman he's having an affair with.
No doubt. No doubt.
He might be in jail for his debts.
Yeah, well, I don't think they jail people for debts anymore, but he might not have made it. You know what I mean? He may
Yeah.
not have made it. I mean, in modern, he had a king pluck him out of. I mean, he still would have been world famous for the work he had done, but the fact that the king just wiped his debts out, he gets to build his own Festspiel house. It's still there. You can
Hmm.
go. I would love to. In fact, I am going to go one year. It's going to be a personal thing. I'm going to go do, just to see.
Yeah.
Just to sit through four days of people screaming. Uh, Seems like a
Yeah,
fun thing to do.
you can't just like flee a country to escape your debts now. I suppose he would have had multiple bankruptcies. Maybe he's just like setting up limited companies and collapsing
Yeah,
them.
I know he was, I mean, it seems like he never got his finances right. Even after the king comes along, he just can't get his finances together, which is just such a crippling, silly
Yeah.
way to live. But I mean, there it is. Okay, we're going to close this down. We're going to do the after dark. We'll come back and we're going to talk about. We got our Euro Lynch. I'm going to read from Catching the Big Fish, see if we have any synchronicity there. I'm going to talk about the hysteria around his music. Wagner's music is like a sexual goblin. It causes orgasms. It's dangerous for women. Wagner and women. We're going to talk a little bit Wagner and cinema, and then we'll talk a bit more than a bit about the Nazi appropriation of Wagner and Wagner as like the dead court composer to the Third Reich, which happened and is heavy and will go behind the paywall. Woody Allen, and this is from Wagnerism. And thanks everybody for listening. If you want to hang out with us more, hear more, go to patreon.com/art of dark pod. One more time, patreon.com/art of dark pod. You can go to substack.com/at art of dark pod. $5 a month. Chuck it in, help us out. So we can keep doing this. Again, we're doing 12 of these, a year, 12 core episodes, and then dark rooms coming your way. And then again, there's more stuff behind the paywall. There's the book club, and yeah, other good stuff. This is again from Wagnerism as I close this out. Woody Allen made an often quoted crack about Wagner in his 1993 film Manhattan Murder Mystery. As his character walks out of a performance of The Flying Dutchman at the Met, he says, "I can't listen to that much Wagner, you know? I start to get the urge to conquer Poland." We'll be back. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Evan. See you in a bit.
Thank you.